Sister Halene winced at the pain from her wound, far from healed completely, and looking to the journey back to the keep, she held the potion of healing in her hand, weighing whether or not to drink its contents. She felt grateful to be alive, but she didn't feel as if she'd done anything but set her friends back. What good was she if she had no ability to heal, to really heal? And she lifted a silent prayer to Pelor while thumbing the stopper to the elixir in her hand. Thrumli walked to where she was sitting and rested on his knee. She could see that he had not escaped the fight without injury. She sat up and groaned. "Fair sister," Thrumli stammered, I'm sorry I did not protect you. Forgive me. We almost lost you." "My dear dwarf," and at this she put her hand on his knee and smiled, "the responsibility is mine, and mine alone. Release yourself from any misplaced guilt on my account." Thrumli nodded silently. "You are injured, and don't tell me it is but a scratch," Sister Halene said, although the words came through as biting pain. "And you are far more wounded than any of us," replied Thrumli, looking at her dressed shoulder and silently cursing the elf's shoddy bandaging. He put his weathered hand over her own, still clutching the potion of healing. "Promise me you will take this elixir before we leave this grotto. And if you do that, you can tend to my scratch, if it pleases you." "I promise, Thrumli," said Sister Halene. She unstopped the elixir and put the vial to her lips. "Welcome to Nosh Solo." And welcome back. Well, this is now the first part of the second session of Chapter 1 of Chris Sims' Keep on the Borderlands, a reboot of Gary Gygax's original Keep on the Borderlands. And if you're just joining us, please jump back to review the first session of these adventures. And in case you're wondering, no, this is not a replay of the original Keep on the Borderlands by Gygax. This is a 4th edition D&D reboot of that module that I am playing through using the GURPS 4th edition rule set and taking bits and pieces from GURPS Dungeon Fantasy and trying to blend in a little bit of old school D&D as presented by Moldve in the basic set from, I think, 1981. Now, it goes without saying that this is my second take at recording this, because the first time I did the session, I completely forgot to record the right screen, the correct screen. So I had like 42 minutes of basically a blank screen with my voice being heard. Yay. Oh, aren't these fun days? Okay, well, here we go. We'll jump right back into the action. So, the characters are going to spend another half hour in the grotto. They want to make sure that they are all fully recovered from their fatigue point losses. In all the action of the previous sessions, I forgot that, of course, Velistra had spent quite a bit of her fatigue points in casting spells. So she definitely wants to be recovered for the trip back to Restwell Keep. Now, having said that, we've got some healing to be done here based off of the opening narrative. So we're going to jump right over to Sister Halene. And Sister Halene, she is down by 6 hit points. So she promised Thrumli she would use that elixir of major healing. So let's see how many hit points she gets back. She gets 2d of hit points back. So she gets 6 hit points back. That brings her right up to her full complement of 10 hit points. So the magical effect of taking that elixir is that the remaining wound simply regenerates itself, the muscle, the tissue, the blood vessels, any arteries, any damage simply regenerates itself as if there was no damage to begin with. And the only record of any damage being done will be the sizable cut into Sister Halene's leather armor. With that, she is going to attend to Thrumli. Thrumli is down by 1 hit point. And she is going to use one of his healing poultices to make sure that this healing sticks, because she is going to have to roll off of her Esoteric Medicine holy skill. Now, in my way of thinking, this Esoteric Medicine holy is the equivalent to some form of faith healing on the part of the cleric. And if I were to try to visually describe it, I would say that the Pellarites, of which she's a member of this order, in order for them to practice esoteric medicine, this involves some prayer. It involves what we might call orthopraxis, meaning that those of an orthodox faith believe in the power not only of faith, but in how you practice the actual rituals that the religious rites, if you will. So it really depends on how well you speak the words in the right order, the hand gestures in the right order. Everything has a proper order in order to give an effect. So that's one way of looking at how the Esoteric Medicine Holy is being put to work here. Let's see how well she heals this 1 point for Thrumli. Again, using that poultice as a bit of a backup. So Sister Halene succeeds by 4 on her Esoteric Medicine Holy roll. That means that Thrumli should be getting back 1 dice minus 3 with a minimum of 1 hit point, but with the poultice that'll be boosted by 2. So we'll throw a minus 3 modifier into the box here if we can. Nope, gonna have to manually do that. So there it is, and we'll do a 1d3 for healing on Thrumli. Minimum of 1 hit point. So again, it's not going to go to negatives with that modifier. He is going to get the minimum of needed to bring himself back up to his full 13 hit points. Okay, with those 2 actions completed, with everyone now having been completely regenerated of their fatigue points, they are now going to get ready to head south back to Restwell Keep. And as they gather at the entrance to the grotto, they look to the south and they can see in the far distance storm clouds gathering on the southern horizon. And they estimate that, they'll be walking right into the path of those miserable storm clouds. Okay, so I'm going to drop the image of the grotto here. I'm going to pull up a new image of the return to Restwell Keep, and you'll just see how bloody miserable it is for them as they begin their return trip. And I'll increase the scale there so you can see that lovely rolling undulated plains and the scraggly barren trees and the keep somewhere off in the distance here to the south. And with that, I'm going to read a little bit of narrative from the adventure for you. By the time you begin your return to Restwell Keep, the afternoon is waning and the skies open in earnest. Torrents of rain battering you and Gordi with relentless force. The downpour soaks through every layer, chilling you to the bone. As the hours drag on, Gordi's condition worsens. His breath comes in ragged gasps. his words slipping into disjointed murmurs between bouts of violent coughing. It's clear something inside him is failing. And at this point, Sister Halene can try another Esoteric Medicine skill roll. However, this will be at a significant modifier of -4, but she can try to at least do something to help poor Gordi, whether that's just, again, through faith and the application of the what I'm calling orthopraxis of Esoteric Medicine Holy, perhaps just to alleviate some of his symptoms. Let's see how well or poorly she does. And so she fails by 3. So in effect, she cannot help Gordi in the least here. Whatever is going on with him, it's beyond her ability to even attend to. But by that same token, Thalwyn and Thrumli could equally try some first aid rolls. But I think both of them are just happy to hold on to either side of Gordi and help him along the road back to Restwell Keep. Gordi is relatively coherent enough to suggest that if someone would lend him a cloak, he would like to at least not have to look so sick and poorly going back into the keep. He would like to have a little bit of a low profile. And Sister Halene says, of course, whenever we're feeling under the weather, and especially in your condition, I can understand why you might want some privacy. So she says, when we get to the keep, I'll pull a blanket out from my backpack and we can have that to cover you. And he thanks her very much for her thoughtfulness. Okay, so they get back to the keep and they are drenched to the bone from this torrential downpour, but they are going to see good old Friar Benwick, Friar Jarrell, and Friar Ven waiting for them in Benwick's quarters. And when the door opens, Benwick looks at first ecstatic, not surprised, just ecstatic, and so very happy to see them back, and quickly ushers them in. But as soon as Gordi removes the blanket from his head, Benwick is going to just gasp and immediately be concerned and ask what happened and what's wrong with you, Gordi? What did they do to you, Gordi? And he will quickly take Gordi into a neighboring bedroom to lay him down and start to examine him. And Sister Halene will offer to go in and assist with this. Benwick welcomes the help. And it doesn't take Benwick long to do his own diagnosis of Gordi and say, Sister, aside from him being beaten about the head and body, I believe he's been poisoned. And Sister Halene says, yeah, I had a suspicion that maybe that was what it was, but I wasn't sure if it was perhaps just some internal injury from his wounds. And Benwick says, no, these wounds are mostly superficial and will heal easily on their own with good rest and nourishment. I have some poultices I can use to assist to that end, but no. I'm going to have to bring up some sort of antidote for this condition of his. Needless to say, thankfully, I have some things in my cupboard that I've already prepared, and they should still be for good effect. So Benwick will come back out of the bedroom and say to everyone, please sit by the fire. And he'll turn to Friar Jarrell, and he'll say, Jarrell, please go next door to the stumbling giant. Ask them to get a table ready for all of us. I would like to take our guests over there for a good meal and some refreshment after this journey and this perilous time that they faced, I would like to see them hosted to the best of our ability for bringing our Gordi back to us. And so Jarrell nods, and he removes himself from the room and heads over to the stumbling giant. And at this point, Garen will get up and walk over to Benwick. Friar, if you don't mind, I would like to explain a little bit about what happened and what we saw. And Benwick says, yes, please. I am interested in that. And he whispers over to Van, just go and get those antidotes from the cupboard and take them in and give them to Gordi. Thank you. Yes. Now, tell me more. What did you see when you got to the grotto? How did everything unfold? So Garen will relay to him who was holding Gordi captive, and while there was no, there was no confession on the part of any of the captors that Ronick was behind everything, Garen says, we did find this on a dragonborn by the name of Kesk. I defeated him in single combat, and he was wearing this. And so Garen hands over the pendant, and Benwick looks at it, and Garen says, none of us could determine, what exactly that icon was. And Benwick takes a closer look at it and raises an eyebrow and says, oh, he says, this is a very old icon of the cult of Tiamat. You don't see it very often, but this is yet evidence again of Ronick's link to that insidious cult, and that it is making inroads into Restwell Keep. If only we could find Ronick and have such evidence right on him, that would seal the deal as far as I'm concerned. But this is still important evidence all the same. I don't want this pendant anywhere in my quarters. Do you understand? It must not stay here. I will not abide having that evil symbol in my presence. And Garen nods and sits back down at the fire and looks at the pendant and wonders just how much value it might hold if he were to try to hawk it off to someone. So, at this point, Jarrell will come back and say, Friar Benwick, a table is ready and waiting for all of us. If you don't mind, perhaps Ven and I will stay here to look after Gordi, and you can take your guests over yourself. And Friar Benwick says, yes, a wonderful idea, Jarrell. You're a good fellow. Thank you so much. Friends, please, let's turn our attentions to going over to the Stumbling Giant, where we can enjoy a larger fire, more heat, good company, good food, good drink, so that I can at least repay you in some kind for the good gift that you've given me in bringing Gordi back to me alive, and we will make him well again. So at this, everyone will get up and head towards the door back out to Fountain Square, where they will go over to the Stumbling Giant. Now, of course, there is somebody here who is not going to be so keen to go into any tavern, and that, of course, is our good halfling, Penny Thistlewink Underbow. Because Penny, if you recall, has a phobia against crowds. And so she is not going to be so keen to go into a really crowded tavern. I mean, if there are, I think, 12 or less individuals, she'll be okay. But as soon as it's over 12, I think that's when the phobia really gets activated. I'm just going to double check that, so bear with me for a moment. Yes, so Penny will have to make a self-control roll. Should there be more than a dozen people in the tavern. And if there's like 25, then she has to make that roll like at -1. But I think she is going to have to make this roll pretty much once she hits the doorway, because as soon as she hits the doorway, she's going to look in there and she's going to realize that there are definitely over 12 people, maybe more, but hey, she's not going to be able to do a head count. And I don't think that's even necessary. It's enough to trigger her phobia as soon as she realizes that this place is jammed with people. So we're going to go down to her others under ability tabs, where I have her control roll here for her phobia, and she needs to succeed on a 12 or less to resist this phobia. So let's see how well she resists, or how poorly. So she fails by 1, which then forces her to go to the fright check table, and she's going to have to add how much she failed by to this fright check. She's stunned for 1 second, and every second after that, she rolled versus her will to snap out of it, yada, yada, yada. So the door opens, and she just pauses, and I'm not even going to roll for the will. She's like, okay. And she takes a deep breath and she steps inside, but she will now be at -2, I believe, to her IQ, dexterity, and various skills. While she remains in this place, she'll have to make another roll in 10 minutes. So that's the disadvantage kicking in for Penny. And I think I'm correct on those modifiers, but let me check. Yes, so she can go in, but she'll have to recheck again in 10 minutes, and she will be at -2 to her IQ, dexterity, and skills while she's in the presence of her phobia. So think of it this way. She really wants to be drier. She really wants that food because we know she's a glutton. And maybe that's something that's perhaps compelling her to get into this tavern to get some food. That's another possibility. Okay, so the characters are seated. And it's at this point that Penny will realize that there are definitely, around 25 people in this room. So the next time she has to check against her phobia, it'll be at -1. And that will be in about 10 minutes. The other person who may have to make a roll against a disadvantage is Velistra, because Velistra has the disadvantage of being a loner. And so if she feels like someone's looking over her shoulder, or she's just in too confined of a space in terms of her personal bubble, she'll have to make a roll as well. So that's the other person we have to keep a watch on. The tavern hums with raucous laughter and the clatter of tankards when a Benwick slips into your circle bearing mugs of ale and a predictably beaming smile. "Truly, friends, you were heaven sent," he says as he sits down and raises a mug for a toast. "Gordi is on the mend, and come morning, once this cursed storm breaks, we'll chart our path forward against Ronick. But for now, take your ease. I've arranged rooms for you all at the Traveller's Inn next door. Rest, eat, and steel yourselves for what lies ahead." Then, leaning closer, his tone drops to a whisper, nearly lost beneath the tavern's din. "I've placed a spy within Ronick's ranks, a woman named Sal. Halfling, brown-braided hair, brown eyes. Keep an eye out for her. She's our hidden blade in the battles to come." And he winks, and with that, Benwick rises and disappears into the tavern's shifting tide of voices and flickering firelight. So as Benwick was speaking there, I'm going to have the characters make perception rolls, but I'll do this as the game master. So in GURPS 4th edition, there are two conditions where the GM would roll for players on behalf of their characters. One would be situations when the character shouldn't know whether they succeeded or not. But the other condition is when a player shouldn't know what's going on. And this can include a lot of the sense rolls, rolls to use danger, sense, and so on. So again, the classic example from the rules, is what if, you're walking along a path and there is an enemy that's, waiting to jump on you. Could be an animal up in a tree. But as the game master, you shouldn't say, hey, there's an animal up in a tree ahead. Roll to see if you see it. No, the GM is going to make that roll and do it in secret. And then if someone succeeds, release that information. So this is one of those situations where I'm going to, as the GM, roll for every single PC. And this is while Benwick is talking. All right. So I'm going to start with Garen. Here we go. And then we'll go to Kale. And I'm just rolling off their vision, technically. And Penny, she will be at a significant modifier here because of her phobia. Sister Halene. Here we go. Thalwyn. Thrumli. Yeah. And finally, Velistra, who may very well have the best opportunity to see something with her native perception. All right, I'm just going to take a pause and review the results. All right, so the only character that notices something is Velistra, not surprisingly. And Velistra sees this. Velistra notices a halfling woman with brown hair, brown eyes, and braided brown hair off to the side of the tavern, looking at them from time to time. And Velistra's like, well, this matches who Benwick is talking about. And so once Benwick leaves and everyone starts to eat, Velistra is going to have to decide, should I tell someone or shouldn't I? And I think what she's going to do is, as they're eating, she's going to lean forward and she's just going to say loud enough for everyone to hear, I think the halfling that Benwick described is actually in the tavern right now. Don't look up, but I believe she is sitting over to our left near the door, and she keeps looking over here. She seems to be really interested in us. I don't think she's looking at anyone in particular. I think she's just looking at us. So at this, everyone kind of tries to play nonchalant, eating their food, trying not to make nodding nodding gestures, but, taking drinks from their cups, etc., etc. And so I think what I'm going to do now is have a quick contest. And this will be basically a contest between the halfling woman's observation skill and the observation skill of the other characters. Now, to me, it's got to be observation versus observation, because the halfling woman is trying to observe them but not be noticed. And I think that the others are now going to try to do the same thing. So it's like, back in the day when you're in the bar and, somebody catches your fancy or you catch theirs and they're trying to look at you but not make it obvious. Well, that's kind of what I'm going to do here. The idea that you are observing but not making it obvious that you're observing. So for those who have the observation skill, well, they can roll off that. And I believe the only person who's got that skill is probably Kale. Everybody else is going to have to roll from a default, which is an ungodly perception -5, if I'm not mistaken. I'll double check. Yes, it's observation defaults to perception -5 or shadowing -5. So quickly looking at the skills of the characters, I wonder, did I make a note of who had these various skills? Well, see, Kale's got observation at 10 and shadowing at 10. A lot of them have stealth, but nobody really outside of Kale has that skill of observation. So Kale's going to roll off observation. Everybody else is going to roll off of a -5 to their perception skill or perception score. So I think I will start piling up everybody and start rolling on some perception here. So we'll go down to their other ability tab. I'll drop in a -5 modifier for each one of them. And let's see how well they roll. They're going to roll in the box because they're not supposed to know how well they succeed at this little quick contest. So here goes Garen into the dice tower. And let's do the next one. So that's Garen. Then we've got Kale, who's going to roll against just flat observation. So here we go. I instantly realized I should have put a -5 for Garen, so I'm going to have to correct that when I go and look at his results. Okay. Penny, who is going to be at a further -2 on top of the -5 for a -7 in total because of her phobia that she's struggling to fight. So here we go. And then we've got Sister Halene, who will go down to her abilities as well for perception. Here we go. Thalwyn, again, down to his perception at a -5 into the box. Or the pyramid, as the case may be. Thrumli, Ironfoot, who again will go down to his perception here, drop a -5 in there. And that leaves Velistra, who again, of all of them, probably has the best ability here, with the exception of perhaps Kale with his observation skill. All right, so that's all of them. And of course, I will roll for the halfling woman here as well. So give me just one moment for that. And Does she have observation, or is she rolling off of perception? Well, you'll never know. But here comes her roll all the same. Okay, now I'm going to pause and compare all the results to see how it all plays out. Okay, so you know those moments in a bar where somebody is checking you out, as I said earlier, and you're checking them out, but you really don't want to make it obvious. But then you both fail in trying to be surreptitious about it. Well, this is exactly what happens here. That while everyone is trying to look towards the halfling woman and not make it obvious, she's doing the same towards the party. And pretty much they all fail at this quick contest of observation skills or defaults to observation. And like 6 eyes lock on, 6 sets of eyes lock onto her set of eyes, and she instantly realizes, yep, they know I'm looking at her. The only person who doesn't make it that obvious is the elf, who actually succeeded in the quick contest here. Now, there's different ways that could have been played out. Like, for instance, they could have decided, who will make that effort to look, I think this is more humorous, that they all decided to take a look, and that the elf is the one who actually didn't make it all that obvious. So what happens? Well, the halfling woman, in realizing she's been seen, she just turns and bolts for the door. And out she goes into the dark, rainy evening, or at least end of the afternoon, I should say, leaving everyone to look at her backside as she goes. And then they all turn and they all look at each other. And at this, Garen gets up and he starts to make his way to the door, followed by Kale, followed by Thrumli, followed by Thalwyn, followed by Velistra and Sister Halene, and most of all, a very relieved Penny, who gets up and as she's leaving the table, goes and picks an apple off of a platter and shoves it into her pocket for later use. So rather than get up and run out after the halfling, they just get up and deliberately start making their way out of the tavern in some good order or fashion. But no sooner have they reached the door of the tavern when they are like all running out into Fountain Square. And what do they find there? Well, give me one moment. Okay. So, the downpour blurs the street into shimmering streaks of silver as the halfling tears through the rain-slicked darkness, boots splashing across cobblestones. She races toward the keep's fountain like a halfling fleeing death itself, only to veer hard at the final moment, slipping towards a narrow alley and leaving you fully exposed beneath the flickering lanterns. From the shadows they come, brutes, blades drawn, their grins sharp and humorless. The air seems to thicken with danger. "They're on to us," the halfling shouts, her voice both warning and signal. "Get 'em!" And this is what meets the party. They find themselves in a square. The rain is coming down hard. And as they emerge from the stumbling giant, they also see this meet them. And so they see that the halfling has kind of veered off up to here, But there's a thug with a mace and leather torso armor and boots. There's a ruffian with a light club. Another 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 ruffian with a light club. There's a thug with a mace. Another thug with a mace. And over here, where they can't see them, are two more ruffians armed with light clubs. And this is what the party finds out in the rain-soaked Fountain Square. And that, my friends, is where we are going to leave it for this session. Thank you so much for watching.